Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel, happened to be totally blind since birth. Talking about X-Men, the animated series, Season 1, Episode 13, The Final Decision. It's the final episode of X-Men Season 1, by the way. Premiered on March 27th in 1993. I wish I could have been in the writing room as Season 1 was coming to a close. Not knowing if you were going to be greenlit for a second season and having to wrap up Season 1 in the final decision. I think the writers did a fantastic job. And I really wish I could have watched this when it premiered. I wouldn't get to see it until the summer of 94 after it had come out on VHS because my family didn't have Fox at the time. We'd get it during that fall though. So as the episode begins, the X-Men have to track down Senator Kelly. They go from thwarting an assassination attempt to having to stop a brewing civil war because the nation is now on the brink. We have Senator Kelly's base, and they are extremely upset. This guy's been captured, and of course, they're blaming all mutants rather than one mutant they need to be looking for and holding accountable. This is on all mutants. When we see Magneto's shipwreck of a base, we find out that he flew to Washington to witness the beginning of a new age. So he knew about the upcoming assassination. I don't know if he was communicating with Apocalypse during the events of Season 1. I like to think that he was. We do know that he's working with Apocalypse in the Beyond Good and Evil four-parter that would have served as a season finale if it hadn't gotten greenlit for a fifth season. So maybe he was communicating with Apocalypse. Who knows? Maybe Blob mentioned something to him. Magneto does seem to be well informed. And he does know who Mr. Sinister is. By the way, speaking of Magneto being well informed. So this guy's got his ear to the ground about all kinds of things. And yeah, he wants to finish the job. He wants to start that civil war. He feels like mutants are ready to eliminate all humans. And just before he can assassinate Kelly, I like when the plastic sentinels break into his shipwreck. So I guess Trask and Gyrick, they are well prepared for Magneto's antics because, yeah, this group of Sentinels, well, Magneto can't affect them. He can throw pieces of his ship around. I wish this episode had audio description. There are no wikis devoted to extremely detailed synopses of the fight scenes, but this is a very short fight scene. Magneto doesn't fare well at all. He's knocked out just like that, and Senator Kelly, he's taken to, I guess it's an abandoned mine. And we have Trask and Gyrick. They've flown back to the U.S. They were disgraced in Washington at the beginning of the season. They were disgraced at Genosha. Now here they are back in the U.S. I would imagine they're not supported by the government at all at this point. They managed to salvage Master Mold. He survived the tidal wave, and he's churning out thousands of Sentinels. Thousands! As Gyrick says later in the episode. And the X-Men are pulling their hair out, doing their best to find Magneto and avert this civil war. They find Magneto, and he's down for the count, but of course, Kelly, he's taken back to Trask here. And one of my favorite parts of the episode is when Trask finds out just how much of a monstrosity that he's created. Because when he tells a Sentinel to return Kelly to his campaign headquarters so he can, be elected president and Trask can be put in charge of putting mutants in their place in his own mind, the Sentinel tells him no. And Master Mold lets Trask know, hey, yeah, about your plans, they're not logical. I view humans just as flawed as mutants, and you all need to be brought to order. And of course, Trask, this affects him. He's now in the situation that he's put so many mutants in. So now that the problem affects him, he thinks it's bad, he thinks it's horrible, and now he's got that, oh my god, what have I done attitude. So, yeah. What an interesting turn of events for Trask here. I don't feel sorry for him at all. I do feel quite a bit sorry for mutants and humans, because now everyone's in a bit of a pickle here. I like how Gambit is responsible for locating Gyrick. They have to rely on Gambit's memory from Genosha, and he's allowing Professor Xavier to use Cerebro. I remember somebody telling me after I'd see Season 2's Externally Yours that Belladonna, if you look closely, I think she pops up in Gambit's memory, which is really awesome. I like where he's telling Xavier, hey, you're not going to go too far back in my memories, are you? So those inner demons that Beast talks about, we do get to see a bit of a glimpse of that as Professor Xavier is going through Gambit's memories. We do get to see a little bit of Belladonna, according to a friend of mine. Now, that is according to something I'm remembering, like, I don't know, 15 or so years back. I think this individual had a very keen eye for stuff like this, so I'm guessing it is in there, but a really neat little sneak peek at something that's going to be happening in Season 2 with Gambit. Even when they find Gyrick, Gyrick is firing off guns. I would imagine Gyrick has someone with him to attempt to protect him, but he does wind up helping the X-Men locate the base, because now, of course, Master Mold is attempting to replace brains of the world leaders with computers. And Senator Kelly gives the biggest, craziest what when he finds this out. Things are not going well for him, and he realizes just how much of a sticky situation he's in. Magneto, he comes to his senses. He's not too keen on Xavier and the other X-Men going to free Kelly. He says it's suicide. And it's a very serious moment for a Saturday morning cartoon. We actually hear the word suicide. Gambit says, Professor, this is suicide. That's something you wouldn't have really heard very much of. The big S word in a 90s cartoon, but they actually got that past the network censors, I would imagine. I don't know how they did it, but they did. Magneto tells them you're all fools over the comm before they leave. But Xavier is an old friend of his, and even though he and Xavier have been at odds for years, I imagine the wheels in Magneto's head are beginning to turn, and he actually does the right thing and decides to fly to their aid later in the episode. It is a very somber moment as the X-Men board the Blackbird. Everybody goes. Jubilee's going. Professor Xavier's going as well. By the way, I guess there's a ton of explosives strapped aboard the Blackbird. I don't know where they managed to find all that. Some people have said that it's TNT. I don't know what in the world or where in the world they got it, but I guess they got it from somewhere. Maybe Gambit charged a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know. I wonder if there's any visual representation of these explosives. I would imagine the Blackbird would have to have armaments. Yeah. Lots of explosives aboard this jet, apparently. As for the fight scene, we have Rogue, Storm, and Jubilee. They're above ground when they get to the factory. You have Wolverine and Gambit. You've got Cyclops and Jean going below ground attempting to rescue Kelly. So they've split up. Oh, man, what I wouldn't give for an audio description track for this big fight, because I'm sure it was amazing. I'm sure you get to see a lot of the X-Men doing their signature moves. Everyone has to work together. You don't have Wolverine and Cyclops arguing with each other. You don't have Wolverine and Gambit arguing with each other as they did earlier in the season. You have Master Mold, who's ranting just like his creator. I guess he gets it from his dad. Chip off the old block there. And of course, the episode does end in victory. I like that Magneto shows up, saves Xavier. I'm sure he probably does quite a bit before the action scene ends. And Xavier manages to, from what I remember, ram the Blackbird into Master Mold, seemingly putting an end to him. We do get to see him much later in, I think it's season 3. He comes back. He's one interesting Sentinel. I tend to wonder how big this Sentinel is compared to the others. I would imagine Master Mold is probably a lot larger. I don't know how he churns the Sentinels out. There is no description of that on any wiki anywhere. So I'm, at a loss for quite a lot of what's going on in the episode. But we do get Beast. He's freed from prison. And that was one of my favorite moments in the episode. He's been reading and he's been, biding his time, waiting, and now here he is, let out. And Jubilee is very happy to see him again. I would imagine she's probably visited him on more than one occasion. She gives him a big hug. It's one of my favorite scenes. And of course, you have Cyclops proposing to Jean, and of course, she wants to marry him. But unbeknownst to everyone, you have someone quite sinister watching from the shadows. So when season 1 ends, and when this thing first premiered, we got a very different voice for Mr. Sinister. And I've got the clip queued up here. This is not Christopher Britton. If you own the Disney Plus, if you subscribe to Disney Plus, you'll hear the voice on here. This is the first voice they use for Mr. Sinister. If I can put the mic close to the computer speaker so you can hear it.
You never know how it's going to turn out. That gives hope to the future, not knowing.
Hope for the future. Sinister knows what your future holds.
Yeah, that's not the voice I heard when watching the episode for the first time. On my VHS tape, we got Christopher Britton put into that role. So this was, I think, I'm not sure who the voice actor was, but I kind of wonder if he's some kind of insane clone, depending on the universe of X-Men that you're in. When I watched it, I was fortunate enough to have heard Christopher Britton dubbed in there as Mr. Sinister. So, that voice there, he's just, I guess, something that they put in there for the premiere. I got the VHS with Christopher Britton doing the voice. Whenever this episode would air on Fox and reruns, you'd get Christopher Britton doing the voice. But when this came out on DVD, Disney DVD in 2009, they used this episode where you had this manic, insane, not Christopher Britton laughing manically. I don't know what to think of that. It's very interesting. Let's see here. So I've got the X-Men animated series on Amazon Prime. I bought those way before Disney Plus was a thing. And if you own that version, you actually get the Christopher Britton voice dub of Sinister here. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to hear this stuff, but hopefully well enough. So let me cue this up here.
Not knowing.
Hope for the future. Sinister knows what your future holds.
So yes, definitely Britton there. And like I said, that's the version I had on VHS. So kind of cool to have both versions of the episode accessible. So you can kind of compare the voices if you like. I kind of hope that there is some kind of clone of Sinister out there somewhere in one universe of the X-Men, the animated series. I'm sure there's a multiverse. Who knows? Maybe there's not. But yeah, I give the episode a 10 out of 10. I love how the X-Men put aside their little differences. I really enjoyed Senator Kelly turning over a new leaf at the end of the episode. I wish things happen that way in our reality. You know, this guy is realizing that not all mutants are dangerous, that he shouldn't be so bigoted toward them. And I really liked the episode. I think my favorite part was Beast finally being freed. I love this character so much, and I cannot wait to get into season 2. I wanted to do the season finale itself as its own video, just because I wanted to tackle Till Death Do Us parts 1 and 2 together when I talk about them for the first time. I think it's a fantastic season premiere, and I look forward to talking about that next weekend. Sorry for the Saturday of absence there with no X-Men video. So yeah, I'll hear you guys next time. I'm supposed to call you true believers, right? So hear you next time, true believers.